Hi, everybody, and welcome to week 5. Hope you all had a good weekend. Let's go ahead and give you an overview of what to expect this week in English 100. By now, you've all gotten your essay number 1 feedback. And if you haven't looked at it yet, then just open up your Google Doc and you'll see my comments there. Also, make sure that you check in Canvas where I gave you the kind of the 1 point for turning in the essay, just so it will pop up on Canvas. But I gave you some feedback in the Canvas comments box. So make sure that you're clicking on that as well. Okay, so with that in mind, and we'll kind of walk through what to do now with essay number 1 as we're moving forward in essay number 2. Let's take a look at what we can expect. This week is our second week of having a lot of reading. Again, we're kind of gearing up to start essay number 2 in earnest next week. So this week we're getting some more of those foundational pieces in. You're reading the second round of student essays, and really kind of beginning to think about how some of these theories might help us better understand some of our student experiences, right? And so, as we continue to talk about essay number 2, right, the question is, what's getting in the way of students being successful? And you might say, well, maybe students have a lot of fear. Great, that might be your thesis for essay number 2, and then you're going to bring in Rebecca Cox as she talks about fear. And you're going to go back to those student essays and refer directly to students who talked about that fear of failing or fear of succeeding or fear of class, whatever it may be. So we'll talk more about that synthesis piece next week. But again, this week we're just continuing to immerse ourselves in the readings. Next week will be lighter on the readings and we'll start working on the writing. So here are your due dates for this week. We have our first kind of whole class hypothesis around one of my favorite articles called Laziness Does Not Exist. Then we'll have a discussion board about mental health in college students. You have your 5th writing territory, and then your check-ins on the student essays. So let's take a look. First, again, there's nothing that you really need to do for essay number 2 this week, except, again, just keep reading. And with those student essays, kind of taking notes of some of the trends that you find. So that way, when it comes to actually writing the essay, you have something to start with. Okay, so this is the same as it was last week, the synthesis essay assignment. Nothing's different here. I did embed a page here for pre-writing. So for those of you who kind of like to start brainstorming early, this page here is designed to kind of give you some different activities that you can try out for pre-writing. There's 3 different pages here in this online chapter. So again, you can kind of click next to move through those, or you can skip to the very bottom and click next to move out of the textbook. So this page will explain the essay number 1 revision conferences. Okay, if you are thinking about revising, then you need to read this page. And even if you're not thinking about revising, I would encourage you to read the page just so that you can get a sense of what you can expect, right? You're able to revise essay number 1, essay number 2, and essay number 3. The very last essay that you write in this class can't be revised. That's basically the final. But the other ones you can. And if you're not really sure why you would even want to think about revising, then make sure that you read through the revising process in the syllabus, look at the grading policy in the syllabus. Again, you get to kind of make some decisions about what grade you want in the class, and revising may or may not be a part of that depending on what feedback you received for this essay. So this page kind of explains what that process is, what you need to do in order to schedule a revision conference. Those are required. The one thing I will say, because I do want you to read this page, but I just want to reiterate, don't revise your essay and then meet with me. That's backwards. I want you to meet with me first. We can talk through the revision, talk through the comments. I want to make sure that you're on the right track, and then revise. Because what tends to happen, some students are like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and revise and then we'll meet. Well, we'll meet, and then sometimes it's the case that whatever you revised actually wasn't the right thing to revise, right? And so I'm all about trying to make the best use of your time, and revising before you meet with me is not the best use of your time. So schedule a conference, let's talk about it, and let's make sure that you are clear on what to revise, and then you can make those revisions. Okay. Oh, last thing about the revision conference. Your revised essay number 1 is due September 30th. So it's 2 weeks from the day that I released the essay. I released those essays on Thursday, so 2 weeks. So September 30th is the due date. All right. The first reading is by Devin Price. It's called Laziness Does Not Exist. I love this reading. And you're going to be doing, like I said, a class hypothesis. And so when you annotated the syllabus, you all did that individually in groups. That's why you had like individual 1 or individual 20, whatever your number was, right? This time you won't have that. This time it will just be you in the class. Everyone's going to be annotating at the same time. So there's a way for you to hide everyone's annotations, and I kind of explain that in a little video here. But what you're going to be doing when you annotate is you're going to be making 5 annotations. The first 4 will each one be about something you learned, something that was affirmed for you, something that was challenging for you, and then you're going to ask a question. So you're going to read through this, and then you're going to be making 4 annotations on the article. The 5th one is your reply. You're going to go back and find someone's question to answer. So the hypothesis is the same as it was last time, in that it's going to open here. Let's go to the page here. I would encourage you, by the way, to read through the article first before you go into the hypothesis. I just think it's easier. So here's the actual assignment. And you're going to click on this hypothesis, and then it's going to open. Let's see if it'll open for me here. And yeah, oh good. Okay, so see this little eye right here? If you click on this little eye, it will hide everyone's annotations. Now, right now it's blank, right? Because nobody has annotated this yet. But throughout the first couple of days of the week, this is going to be covered in yellow from everybody's annotations. And sometimes that can be a little bit distracting. So if you need to kind of isolate everybody else's annotations away from your own, just click on that little eye right here, and then it will hide everybody. Okay, but let's say that I want to highlight this, right? I'm going to annotate that. I'm going to type my annotations in here. And see where this says add new tag? That's where you're going to identify what type of annotation you're making, whether that's affirmed, learned, challenged, question. You only have to make 4 in the whole reading, right? You're welcome to make more, but you need to tag 4 of them, okay? And this is where you're going to add that tag. And then you're going to post it to the college composition, not to only me, because then nobody's going to be able to read it, to college composition, okay? I'm going to cancel that. For the reply, what you're going to do is you're going to go into the search bar here, and you're going to search for the questions, right? For everyone who typed in question in that tagline, all of the questions will come up, and then you can just choose one that you would like to answer. So that's how the whole class annotation is going to go. Okay. And then, of course, there is a reminder that will pop up on your to-do list to remind you to go back and do the reply. The next page is it's a long page in the module because there's a lot of information about mental health. And so I want you to start with just this quick little video. It's really designed for, well, it's designed for college students, but it mentions people going away to college. So just kind of ignore that. I think that the rest of the content in here is actually really valuable. So start by watching this, kind of ground yourself in that. And then there are a series of articles here, and you need to choose at least one. Now, you can read these for your own personal self and your own personal development, that's fine, but I would like you to read at least one for the discussion board, and you'll see that in just a minute. This, by the way, this video right here, you have to watch a quick ad, but this video was outstanding. It's like a 3-minute video. It's very short, but a bunch of super fast interviews that I thought were interesting. There's also an infographic about underrepresented and underrepresented students who tend to feel less academically prepared and how that impacts mental health. That's a word. This infographic I thought was really important on that point. And then for those of you who like data, there's some data right there. I also included a bonus reading about Maslow's hierarchy. Some folks in class, their essays were kind of about some of the basic needs, like the reason that they are not successful is that some basic needs aren't met, right? And so I think it's important to acknowledge how the hierarchy of needs kind of impacts college students, right? If you're housing insecure, how are you going to go to class and talk about math or talk about sociology or whatever? Like if you haven't had breakfast and lunch and you're not really sure where your dinner is going to be, you're going to have a really hard time focusing on your psych test, right? And so that speaks to what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is all about. So I would encourage you to read through this. And then on the next page is the discussion board, where you can basically kind of just isolate a takeaway that was interesting to you from the previous pages. And there's your reminder to reply to the discussion board. Round 2, reading the student essays. Again, you can continue on your previous notes sheet or start a new one. I would recommend starting a new one. That way you can kind of keep round 1 and round 2 separate, right? So you don't kind of cross them over. You've got round 2, the folder right here. Last week's folder is here also. And again, the assignment is just to upload your notes sheet. And I know on the notes sheet it says, how does this connect to your topic? That's really kind of just getting you to think about, what do you think you might want to write about, and how could that essay maybe help you make some of those? You can also make connections to the readings there as well. Writing territory number 5, nothing different here except that beginning this week, I'm going to start deducting points for writing territories that aren't proofread. Again, I'm not looking for any kind of advanced grammar, but there are some basic errors that you have got to make sure that you're taking note of. Capitalizing I, remembering apostrophes, remembering periods in your sentences, that kind of stuff I should not see in these writings. So please, please make sure that you are proofreading in order to get full credit. And then that's it. That's the end of week 5. Again, next week, less reading and more of a focus on the writing and kind of the beginning of that real brainstorming towards essay number 2. Again, if you want to conference with me about the revision, I would encourage you to do that. And that's it. So have a great rest of your week. And yeah, I'm here if you need me.